So guys, we have a special today. There is one of the biggest DC films that we've been looking forward to for a long time has just come out, Justice League, and we're basically going to get into our views on Justice League. So I've seen this once. My plan was to go and see it multiple times. However, after the first time I watched it, I kind of had to think, do you know what, I need to gather my thoughts a little bit about this, and I slept over it over like a day or so, and my kind of one word review of what I would say about this, and we'll obviously get into this in more detail, would be disappointed, and my kind of emotional thought about it would be sad for what could have been. Before I get into more of that, it would be rude to not let our guest Shaker to get into it. So, Shaker, what did you think about this, man?
Well, I watched it yesterday, Friday afternoon. I went in IMAX the first time. It was like, usually I've seen Logan and I've seen Blade Runner 2049, usually on an afternoon. The IMAX screening has usually been full. For this, it was like less than half full. That was disappointing.
Ours is the same. Ours had probably about 20 people in it. That was the midnight showing.
But then again, it is like you're paying a premium, so maybe people weren't that kind of interested in paying a premium. But I mean, the film itself, it's a mixed bag. It's I think everyone went in with high expectations, and I think definitely I myself went in with high expectations, and I was disappointing is the same word I would use. I went in a bit of a rant yesterday on my spoiler chat review, and I watched it again this afternoon. I went to the cinema again. I watched it in a 2D screening. I would say there's things about it that don't bother me as much this time, the second time round, but it's still a very mixed bag.
The problem is with this for me is mainly the tone of the film. I can't get, because we've been hearing it for a long time. You guys know on the podcast, and if you've seen Shaker on Film Gob on YouTube there as well. We've been big defenders of the DCEU and its tone and its storytelling, and the fact that generally it's different to the way that the Marvel Universe is kind of doing it. And us, we've always been told this is a culmination of a 3-story arc, starting off with Man of Steel, then it ends up with Justice League, and it's basically Superman's story. And the way I kind of saw it was, to me it was like watching Planet of the Apes 1 and 2, and then the third one you go in and it's like comedy, and they've changed the they've changed the color grading of it, and it looks like a TV show. And it's just, Alfred said it best when he goes, I don't recognize this world. That's exactly what I thought when I was watching this film. It's like, is this a completely different thing than the other two ones that have come? If I hadn't seen MOS and BVS, I probably would have got into this a little bit more, because I would have thought, this has not come there before. But it's so different that it just seems to me that I can't see. All I can see from this is basically it's a hugely reactionary effect from Jeff Johns in the studio to what has come there before, and there's so much studio meddling in this. I mean, I saw you put up a video of deleted scenes, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much stuff that was missing from the trailers. I mean, one of the things that people were talking about, like so much speculation, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, was who is that guy who's talking to Alfred? Who was talking to Alfred? We're never gonna know who was talking to Alfred.
I saw someone tweeting, I guess we'll never get to see Alfred talking to Green Lantern.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like, you're right, is the most talked about scene in the past few months. It's not even in the movies. Like, what?
Yeah. I mean, you know, the kind of speculation of the fact that he says hope makes it seem like it's kind of Superman. But then there has to be a little story there before of you know, that why he doesn't want to go back and, you know, join the league, right? Why he's, you know, that he's just like, this isn't for me anymore. You know, I died last time, and, you know, I don't want to lose you again, Lois, that kind of thing. And then it's like, look, you have to go back. But it was just so like, okay, yeah, he's come back. Okay, I have to let you go now. Right, let me go and fight with the league. And then that's it. You know, I mean, for me, the reason why I couldn't, you know, go and watch it a second time is because it felt like it'd been chopped like mad, like literally, like there was, you know, the same way when I watched Suicide Squad, and I just saw that there was a film in there, and it's like, I want to watch that film that is in there. I don't want to watch the one that has been chopped like crazy.
This has definitely got a lot in common with Suicide Squad than anything else. This is like so, like you say, choppy and tonally a bit all over the place. Like even that opening scene doesn't, like, what was that all about? It's like, hey, gee, Superman, have you ever fought a hippo before?
Yes.
What the hell?
Yeah, that.
Because I was expecting the backstory to Steppenwolf and
yes,
Amazonians,
yes,
and, Atlanteans. I thought that was going to start the film.
That's exactly what I thought. I thought that, you know, that's gonna start the thing. Basically, then, you know, then we go into all of it, because then, to me, Steppenwolf just arrived too quickly, and it was just like, okay, he's here now. His job is to go and get the mother boxes. You know, it wasn't like, oh, you know, look at his planet. His planet is a complete shithole, and that's the reason why, you know, he wants to come here, and he's doing all this stuff. I remember Kieran Hines just doing in his interview saying, oh, he keeps getting ordered by Darkseid to do stuff. He's reluctant. He wants a way out. I mean, where was that? I couldn't see any of that in the film.
That must be a completely different film then. So, and just going back to the intro, the vlogging, you know, the YouTube kid, he's like, he asks Superman, what's your favorite thing about planet Earth, right?
Yes.
But if we are supposed to be the audience in this situation, so it's kind of like, we know he's never been anywhere else. He has grown up on Earth. So
yes,
why are we, if we are the kid, why is that in this film? Why are we asking him that question? It doesn't make any sense.
I think that a lot of this basically was like, I can just tell what is going on here. So Jeff Johns is sitting in his office, right, and is like, I like this from my comic book, right? What about this scene from my comic book? What about this scene? Oh, we need to put this thing in, right? So he'll take like one frame from, you know, All-Star Superman or whatever, and be like, right, that has to be in the film because, you know, it's got off well with the comic book fans and they'll remember it, and it will be like that. It's much different to where Zack Snyder will do a very subtle Easter egg, right? And you'll have to really search for it. With this, it's completely different. It's kind of like, you know, it's blatantly in your face. So it's like, oh, you know, where they have, you know, they have the Superman and Flash kind of race, right? And it's like, you know, that's a very kind of iconic thing in DC Comics, but they throw it in your face. So it's literally like, look, we've given you this. I mean, to me, more than being like a DC fan, my fandom is mainly Batman, right? Yeah. And the thing that disappointed me the most is the portrayal of Batman. So I don't know whether you know about this, but there's a studio, they're called Ironstone Studios, and they made all the costumes for Batman v Superman. So they made the Batman ones, the Superman ones, and the Wonder Woman ones. And obviously they made the ones for the new Wonder Woman film, and they've come off really well. So now they demanded to Warner Brothers to like up the price of basically everything, right? And Warner Brothers said, forget it. So they decided to go to somebody else, and it shows because Batman cannot move in his outfit, right? And it's like, you know, you going from a scene where he is Like, this is the thing that annoys me about this film. You've got a scene where basically in BVS, the police go to save these poor women who have been, human trafficked, and they're let out and they're happy, but they don't want to come out because they're scared of Batman. And he goes from that Batman to this guy who is like jokey and is like, Superman saying to him, "Oh, I thought you didn't like me." He's like, I don't not like you. You know what I mean? It's like I was like cringing when I was coming on. It's like, oh, the and that's Jeff Johns. That is 100, not Jeff Johns. That is Joss Whedon, 100% Joss Whedon. Line that would come out. I mean, what did you think? Could you see the transitions between the Joss Whedon and the Zack Snyder stuff in there?
And there's certainly kind of moments in dialogue, and certainly moments in kind of visuals. Maybe like some of the brightness was kind of upped, and the color was upped, especially with the Superman scene, like with his new costume, which is all red and. So I know it's supposed to be blue and red, but it was so bright, it was so distracting.
Yes, it was like overly blue. It was like really like, these guys are doing cosplay, and are like cosplay characters in the film. The one thing the one thing about Superman that I found was just really silly. So, the thing about this film, it's so reactionary, right? Obviously, Zack Snyder's not reactionary, but these guys have been so reactionary. So what were the criticisms of Superman previously, which were incorrect anyway? He didn't save enough civilians. He didn't smile enough, right? So they made a huge effort for him to be smiling all the time. And he's smiling like a psychopath when he's like punching Steppenwolf in the face, and he's like smiling away. And then halfway he stops and he's like, turns around, civilians, like that, and he just flies off to go and save them. It's like, we are throwing it in your face. Look, he's going to save civilians now. There's no subtlety, like, at all.
That end battle was so kind of chaotic in a way, like not in a good way. It was just like, Batman's telling, I think it was Batman telling Flash, go for a walk or go for a run. You need their civilians. He leaves the battle to go and go in a direction he doesn't even know where he's going.
Yeah.
He goes away. Then Superman comes in, and he hears civilians. Then he leaves the battle and goes to. It's like what is going on here? It's like there is a battle going on. I know there's civilians out there, but I did like that scene where Flash, he looks up and Superman's carrying that building.
Yeah, the whole building. That was funny. Yeah, I like that.
That was genuinely funny. A great visual kind of gag. Very, very kind of heroic, but
yes,
at the same time. How about like the new characters? How do you think about Flash, Aquaman, Cyborg? Because I loved Cyborg.
I thought Cyborg was excellent. Do you know one thing I love in films, right? Which is one thing that like Fantastic Four. It was a horrendous film, but I like the way that they were going with it. That basically, imagine if these characters really existed. If you woke up one day and you just were 90% of your body was just this strange metallic kind of thing, and you didn't know what your body was doing. I kind of really liked the way that Cyborg was going. Like he was going from being like the top, one of the top football players to being like a freak, basically, in effect. And he's like, why did I survive? I've survived like this. I really liked that. I just didn't see enough of it, and I didn't see enough of him before being the very popular, the very good-looking top jock that everybody loves at his, at Gotham University and stuff,
I mean, the thing, like, I was unsure how they would portray him, but like watching him, it's like he is aware of his kind of his past, his some of his human kind of mannerisms come through as well.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he's very kind of robotic. I really like that. I thought his CGI was fine. I didn't have any problem with that.
I didn't. I thought his CGI was pretty good. I couldn't see anything wrong with that either. I
How about
think Aquaman was okay, but then again, it's just one of those things. I can just see where they went one way with him, and then it's like, okay, we're going from one way to to another way because he's like basically this reluctant guy who's got something in his past that has made him become like alcoholic, and because of that, he doesn't really want to join this team or whatever, and
yeah.
he flips from being that to like a weird kind of joker bikery guy, and then going back to this kind of tortured kind of guy and stuff like that. It was very a bit all over the place for me. His
Yeah.
his
The thing was, like, the bit where Steppenwolf attacks Atlantis, he steals the mother box, and then Mera and Aquaman, they come together in this little bubble to
Mhm,
talk
mhm.
underwater. And it's like, they just, yeah, hello, Steppenwolf just stole your mother box, and we're
Yes.
having a conversation about your past and this and that. And Aquaman is like, I mean, I did like Mera, her kind of very
Mm.
short performance, but
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
quite good. I quite liked her. But Aquaman is like, oh, I'm going to need a favor from you. And then what was that? Like, I take it it was getting the armor and
Yeah, yeah.
his
and
ability
the
and
and
all
the
that.
and the Quindent or whatever. But it's
Quindent, yeah.
but that scene made me laugh as well because it's like she's like, okay, now it's your duty to go on the surface. So it's like, okay, well now Steppenwolf's out the water. You're not bothered with him. You just like forget it. It took the whole Atlantean army to defeat him last time, right?
Yeah.
They sent the entire Atlantean army, all the Amazons, all the humans, and Green Lanterns, and just beat him without the mother boxes. Now he's got all the mother boxes, and it's like you go up there and you go and sort it out yourself. You know what I mean? It was just bizarre to me. I mean, one of the things, like one of the, I've heard a lot of people saying, well, it's kind of like the Justice League cartoons and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
unfortunately for me, I kind of have to disagree because in the Justice League cartoons, each person had their own kind of thing. So Green Lantern created his constructs. You have Red Tornado. You had Superman, you had Batman, you had whatever. Each one has its own distinct role, right? But when it came to fighting against Steppenwolf, they're all fighting with force. So you got Batman who's using some kind of the alien gun kind of thing to fight against
Yeah.
the whatever. Whereas he's meant to be using his mind and his technology and the fact that he can get away from situations very quickly. Wonder Woman's meant to be using the fact that she's a great fighter. Aquaman doesn't even use. He's the control of the water, but doesn't use any power of any water, even though they're in a water cooler tower. Right, this is where this takes place to actually fight Steppenwolf. Flash is kind of running around, and Cyborg's job is literally to stand there and pull apart the mother box.
The Flash, I was wondering what exactly the Flash can do against parademons, because on a couple of occasions, he's running and he runs into them and he falls off balance, and Batman
Yeah,
saves. And Batman as well, he should be kind of beaten earlier,
commanding.
maybe in the Batmobile. I don't know what happened to the Batmobile.
The Batmobile kind of just randomly appeared at one point,
Yeah,
but it was just like it was very fleeting. And if he was kind of like they obviously wanted to give him a heroic moment where he was in the troop transport and he was kind of flying down, and he wanted to open the shielding and stuff like that, and that was kind of his moment, which I thought was okay because a very Batman-y kind of thing to do. But then after that, he was almost kind of surplus to requirements kind of thing. He was just like he was there to tell them to pull the mother box apart, and that was pretty much it. And it kind of it the reason why I kind of think of it in that way is because physically, I don't think because of the suit they could do the same kind of movements that they could do in BVS. Because when you're looking at the trailer and we're seeing, I can't even remember if this was in the film, when there's Batman and they're in some kind of place and you can see he's fighting against the parademons, and everybody's like, yeah, this is going to be the warehouse scene part 2, right? We're going to
yeah.
see an even greater.
It was in the film, but it was just similar to the trailer. It was just very short. just a few scene, it was a few frames, and that was it.
Yeah, because I was kind of just looking forward to, right, okay, he's gonna kick ass, but it's gonna be with parademons. And once, if you've got the warehouse scene already, he's got to be one step above that, to kind of sell it off, because that's what you do in the next films. And I'll tell you one of the other things right at the start of the film, which just took me out, just like basically on the Wonder Woman scene, right? I couldn't understand what was going on in that thing. Now,
Oh,
I,
I do not like that scene. I don't like it at
I
all. The terrorists.
yeah. So there's these basically like middle class white terrorist bankers, look like bankers in bowler hats, right?
Yeah.
Who have come to
And
the
then
court.
you've got the weird Danny Elfman music playing.
Yeah. And it's like okay, and they're like, yeah, because Superman's not around now, yeah, we can do whatever we. It's like, right, okay, so you come to a courthouse to blow it up for what reason? What was it? Just makes no sense to me. And then it's like some racist is going around, and there's a woman in a hijab, and he's like,
That scene. I mean, that scene. Actually did. I didn't mind the music. The Everybody Knows.
oh, that was good. That was good. That
Because it's very kind of Zack Snydery, like similar to Watchmen. That kind of opening. I think it was just kind of the women in the hijab, and you've got the racists, and it was very kind of. It stood out too much because that was the one scene that they showed, like showing off,
yes.
people in the streets are going a bit crazy and Superman's not around, and they could have shown a bit more, maybe.
There probably was more to that.
Yeah,
But they were probably like, do you know what? It's not gonna be right for, it's one of those things that they said it didn't test well with their studio execs. So there was probably some other stuff going on, people, kicking over homeless people, or someone robbing, doing stuff like that, or because of this. What is that film? Nicolas Cage film. It's not a great film. Knowing. Have you seen this film? It's basically like
but the mathematics.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So then they figure out that obviously the sun's gonna blow up, and and basically they know the sun's gonna blow up. So because of that, there's all these people looting and they're being horrendous to each other and stuff like that. I can kind of understand that if they know that, right, okay, there's been one alien invasion and Superman kind of saved us, and potentially there might be another one, and there's now no Superman. So everybody's looting stuff, everybody's being bad to each other. That I could kind of understand. I can almost guarantee Zach has put that in there because it's a very Watchmen-y kind of scene, with Night Owl and the comedian when they come down and there's all anarchy going on and stuff. I could imagine him putting that in there, and the only thing they kept was that one little kind of bit, basically.
Yeah, and you've got the homeless guy with the "I tried" sign.
Yes.
It's very, very, that stuck out way too much.
Yeah. It just seemed like there was two tones running through the thing, and to me I could see very obviously the kind of different bits that were in there. And every time, like, there was a bit in the middle where it was like where I could see that there was, they started going into the warehouse and stuff, and Cyborg was there and he was seeing his father and things. That I could tell was Snyder, because there were, and it continued for probably about 10 minutes. Right, and then when it just stopped and it then went into the jokey silliness there again, I was thinking, why didn't you just continue where that 15 minutes was going, right? It kind of reminded me a lot of like Terminator 2, that kind of bit, because it was like Terminator 2 is not a hilarious film. It's got a very serious tone, but it's funny. It's funny because of just the way it kind of, the way it kind of is. It's like fundamentally, I don't think these guys understand the way that some of these characters are, even though they write the comics, right? It's like Batman is funny because he is nasty to everyone, right? That's what's funny about it. It's like he is basically like, just cusses people and he's actually being genuinely serious when he's cussing. He's not trying to make a joke, right? And that is what makes it funny. And Superman is yeah.
I did like that scene where they're in the, I think it's the Batcave, even though it looks like a military hangar.
Yes.
They're in the Bat. They've got the mother box, and Bruce Wayne. He has a little dig at Diana about Steve Trevor. I really like that scene. So that was him kind of being a very dickish, and that was kind of classic Bruce Wayne. But just going back to earlier in the film, that opening scene with Batman and the Parademon and this criminal. Is it a random criminal? Who was that guy?
So basically, for some reason, he's done something, and then Batman decides, right, okay, I'm going to get him and use him as bait for a parademon, right? Okay, but then that makes me think, okay, the parademon, for some reason, Batman knows the parademon smells fear, and that's why he comes, right? And he's like, okay, let me just pick up a random criminal and then kind of do it. What would have been more funny was, did the same to, I don't know, one of the guys in Suicide Squad, just any one of those guys, and just like hung them off the side and said, oh, the parademon smells fear, because that for me would have been more funny, because straight away you know the backstory of that person, you know that they're a bad criminal, and it's a very Batman-y thing that he would kind of do.
So I'll just go back, because that scene, you know how he traps the parademon?
Yeah.
And he explodes.
Yes.
And then that criminal comes back and he's asking, what was that? Was that? And Batman's like, a scout. I was like, why are you having a conversation with each other? What is going on here? I didn't understand
arrest
that.
this guy, string him up, whatever. He is a criminal. That's what Batman would do. Criminal, phone up Gordon, go and get him to come and get him. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So I was thinking, were they planning this together? Like, who is this guy? And then he's like, oh, is this because Superman? And then Batman just goes away. Weird, very weird scene.
It was a very odd kind of thing. Obviously Batman's got this, got the parademon up. I think what they were trying to do there is, Justice League War, you've seen the animated one, right? So there's a scene on the rooftops. It starts off on the rooftops. Batman's following the parademons. Green Lantern turns up, and then Superman turns up. So the first time Batman has met Green Lantern and Superman is when he sees them both on the rooftops, and Superman's never met Batman at that point, right? So they were kind of trying to do that he's on the rooftops, but the problem is you can't put Green Lantern in, right? Because he's not going to be in this movie. And the second thing is that it's an animated film that gives you the backstory of the parademons there later on. I mean, another thing, I was really looking forward to that Lord of the Rings backstory kind of telling thing, right? Yeah. And that was really disappointing for me. What did you think of that section?
Yeah, it was split up into two kind of scenes. Well, it was very kind of close together, but it was kind of split up. They went over it kind of quickly. It looked amazing, but it was still it was done. It was started and finished very quickly. So it was very disappointing. I would imagine if there was any kind of director's cut, I know Zack Snyder's got other things to deal with right now, but it would be great if, because he said already he's not seen the film.
Yes. What do you think he's going to think of this film? Honestly,
I want to know what him and Joss Whedon are kind of, if they have any kind of friendship, or if they're don't like each other. I don't know.
I mean, this is the thing, because they were saying that Joss has kept, in essence, what is Zack's thing. We know that's completely wrong after watching the film. He hasn't at all. And that was one of the kind of worrying things there when it was starting, because their tone is very, very different. And for somebody who you like me, basically we've liked the stuff that DCE has put out. I mean, I can't say that Man of Steel and BVS are bad films. To me, they're fantastic films, and they have longevity. I mean, I've watched BVS so many times. The more I watch it, the more stuff kind of comes out to me.
Yeah, because I rewatched them like everyone. You know, I rewatched these movies before going to
Yes.
see Justice League, and I can't. To me, they are like so. They're so mature. They're so kind of well written, well acted, amazing effects. So kind of creative in its effects. The tone is perfect for DC films, and I can't
Yes.
believe they've gone in this direction now. How and a big part of those movies is the score and the music. And so,
Oh,
what do you
yes.
feel? How do you feel about the Danny Elfman score?
Okay, I basically what I usually do is before any of these films come out, I know I started this thing off in probably in about 2001, 2002, whatever it was, when Revenge of the Sith came out, right? And
Yeah,
I just like because I drive to like different jobs and stuff like that, and I basically would buy the CD, put it in the car, listen to the soundtrack again and again and again before the films come out because
right.
I love the soundtracks, right? Um, I did the same for BVS, did the same for Man of Steel, which are amazing soundtracks. Interstellar, all of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
And with anticipation, I downloaded this before like the film had started, and I was listening to it. I've got a friend who's really into DC there as well, and both of us were listening to it on a journey, right?
yeah,
And I was like, I can't remember any of these songs. So they like meld into each other.
yeah,
There's nothing like memorable about it, and sometimes like I go back to the Revenge of the Sith, which wasn't a great film, but the score was fantastic. Where it's like the point where he's basically getting burnt, on Mustafar and stuff, and the music is just so powerful and it's so sad and it's just like it's fantastic, right? You can tell the way that these scenes kind of fit together. Whereas Danny Elfman has basically been like lazy. I mean, I was listening to this one of them. I think it's called Antihero or something like that. And
yeah,
basically, it starts off and it goes very much like any other kind of action film kind of score where it's like dun 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 like
yeah,
that. And then
yeah,
it literally stops for 3 seconds and then goes dun 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 dun, the Batman score. And I was
yeah.
like, you have just basically just said, I'm giving up here and I'm putting in this score that I like. It's like required no effort or anything like that. And I know I watched your thing about the red carpet, right, on on
Yeah.
YouTube. And they interviewed Danny Elfman and he goes, I don't listen to the score after I've made it.
I know a lot of musicians are like that. They don't want to
Yeah.
listen to their music after they made it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking, well, you should have, mate, because because it needed a lot of changes. Most of it didn't fit very well. Have you seen? There's a thing one guy's put on Twitter about. He took that scene when they're in the tunnel with Aquaman and stuff, and put the BVS and Man of Steel music in there.
I've not seen that, no.
I'll try and forward that to you. It's so much better. It's just amazing how the score just changes the scene.
Uh,
It's
I mean, like, say, I saw someone comparing. He has put the Avengers theme in there. He has put that
yes,
in there. I saw the comparison of that. And then, like, all this fuss about, oh, he's bringing back the 1989 Batman theme. You hear it briefly and then it's gone because it's so much noise on screen. It was like,
hmm,
what was the point of using it?
yeah,
I didn't mind the John Williams Superman theme,
hmm,
the kind of darker version of it in that scene when Superman returns in
yes.
this movie. Let's talk about how um, Superman returns. Do you think the way they handled him being brought to life in this movie damages the ending to Batman v Superman?
So you talking about we see dirt rising, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
So
so so.
to me, that meant that Superman is he's something's happening in the grave, right?
Hmm.
In the coffin. He will rise. to me, I was thinking the body's going to go missing. There's going to be
Yes.
a mystery of what's happened to his body, just like it did in the comics.
Yes.
And then that would lead Batman to, figure out what's happening. Where is he? Can we
Yeah.
get back? But here, it's like in Justice League, it's like, oh, we can use the mother box to bring him back to life.
Hmm.
Let's dig up his body. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, yeah. That to me didn't make a great deal of sense. I mean, the thing that I thought, I mean, obviously, we can talk about this kind of thing, what we would have done in the movie there for,
Yeah,
till
yeah,
the cows come home. But my kind of thing that would have been ideal from there would have been like, right, okay, Steppenwolf, he got defeated last time when he came down, right?
yeah,
But he didn't have a Kryptonian by his side. So he steals the body, and his
yeah,
plan is to use the mother box to resurrect Superman. And it's a race against time for the Justice League to bring Superman back to their side before Steppenwolf goes and brings him back
there you go.
to his own side. And Lois is the key to bringing him back to their own side, as it were. That straight away makes the storyline, a much better story that basically people can get into and actually makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Because now he's got something behind him that is going to help him actually win, rather than like, okay, we that's the one thing about bringing back Superman that I didn't really like is like, I would have expected if Steppenwolf had basically beaten them all like within an inch of their life, not individually but all together. He would have
yeah,
just destroyed them, like literally, like they were not Batman with a few bruises on his back. They would have literally been like, all of them would have been decimated. They would have been injured. Diana for the first time would have had actually injuries on her, and she would have been shocked that, like, look, this guy's actually injured me. Or Aquaman for the first time is basically in, that kind of thing, and Flash just completely overwhelmed by the fact that there's this villain, and then they have to resurrect Superman. For me, they never got their asses kicked so much that they required Superman. They did it individually, but then all together, maybe they could have beaten Steppenwolf if they all were all together. They didn't really need Superman, because it was like, there wasn't a time when they were all together fighting against Steppenwolf until
yeah,
towards the end.
yeah. I mean, even though I did have problems with, just the way they brought him back, what happens after he comes back to life is
Yes,
pretty amazing. Him
the
fighting
Flash
Justice League,
and
that was like a big, like, no, I don't think anyone expected this scene. No one heard of anything like this happening. I
no,
don't think. I wasn't reading the kind of spoilers anyway, but it's not something I expected. I really liked that fight. He would, like, if he, like I said this on Twitter just a few hours ago, um, Cavill can do an evil Superman so good,
hmm,
and if they do Injustice, they have to have Snyder doing it. He could knock it out the park.
oh,
And
definitely,
it's like, you've got the scene, he grabs Diana with one hand, he's got Aquaman, he's grabbed him by the other. You've got Cyborg trying to kind of push him down or something. He just looks at him. And
yeah.
then you've got the Flash,
Oh,
who
I thought that was brilliant.
starts running around in slow motion, and you see Clark, he's just turning his eye slowly, catches his eye, and Flash is like, oh fuck, he's that fast.
Yeah, exactly. He's so fast that he can actually see me. I thought that was brilliant. That was absolutely, like, a brilliant bit, and that could have, with a better score and stuff like that, that would have been an even more like epic scene. I mean, I'm not going to go and say that this film did absolutely everything wrong at every
Yeah, yeah,
point. There are bits in there where you just look and you think, this is really good, and there are bits where it's like, you should be really kind of cheering, right? So, like, the bit in the tunnel when Steppenwolf is kind of fighting against them, and he generally is beating them, and then Aquaman reluctantly comes, and he comes out and he basically saves them by controlling the water. That should have been a scene like, yeah, Aquaman. But it was just
yeah,
like, it was like so, it was so dulled down because you don't really get the feel for like, oh yeah, he's coming to save a team that I actually really really like. But that
Yeah.
scene on its when you take it on its own is a good scene. The Superman scene I thought was a good scene there on its own. I mean, let's talk about the bits after the film, right? The two after credit scenes. What did you think about those?
I thought they were okay. Like, I'm not a fan of post-credit scenes, but this one with the first one with the Flash and Superman, it's just kind of fan service.
Yes.
To me, it doesn't even need to be there. This is something that you could open up, maybe the Flash movie with, or the opening scene to Justice League 2, something like that. It's something that they could have waited for, but they had to throw it in there.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think they could have, if it was handled slightly differently, I think it would have made sense because Clark basically saw him running around. So it's kind of like he is like super fast, right? So
yeah,
obviously that's peaking the Flash's kind of, idea about it. So if it was handled slightly differently, dialogue was slightly better, I think it would have made a bit more sense rather than let's stand at a line and then kind of race against each other.
yeah.
And then obviously then there was the second one. So what did you think about that?
It was good to see, because from what I was hearing, people are saying it's one of their top. Was it Umberto Gonzalez saying it's one of his top post-credit scenes of all time? It's like
The clickbait king, yes.
and I thought it must be really good. And then I go and watch it, and it's like, okay, it's Deathstroke. Finally, we get to see Deathstroke. Yes, it's the same actor,
Hmm.
Joe Manganiello. Yes, finally confirmed he's still part of this. He is going to be part of the universe. It's good to see Lex Luthor back. Um, and they're saying, yeah, we should have a league of our own. And I'm
Yes.
thinking, fair enough, but you've got what? You keep teasing things with
Yes.
no official release dates, no casting, no nothing, no writers, no directors.
Yeah.
So here's just another thing we can add to the list. There you go, League of Doom.
So who? I mean, so that's. I mean, that is the thing because they're talking about Legion of Doom, right?
Yeah,
So
it's like
so
Legion of
so but then but then who's in it? Because
I
it's
know.
like, and the thing that kind of dismays me a little bit about this, like I said at the start of the podcast, basically the main emotional thing that I feel is sadness, and the reason being is because Ezra Miller for this past week has been talking about, don't worry, guys, there's going to be a flashpoint, whatever. Now, I watched this film and I watched the tone of this film. I went home after this film and I went and watched Justice League War, Justice League Doom, and Flashpoint Paradox. So I needed to kind of just say, because I was talking to a lot of people on Twitter and stuff like that, and I was thinking, these guys are like loving this film, like literally loving it. I must be missing something. They're saying to me that it's like the animated stuff, and I've seen the animated stuff multiple times. Maybe I'm missing something, right? And I watched that, and I just thought even more. I felt even more sad because I'm thinking, with that tone, how is the Flashpoint paradox going to work? It is not going to work. They're not going to have, Wonder
Oh,
Woman versus.
sorry, don't go into spoilers. I've not seen it. I've
Have you
seen
not seen it?
I've
Oh
seen
look.
War
Oh
and
yes,
Doom, but I've
yes,
not seen
yes.
Flashpoint
Watch
Paradox. Sorry.
Flashpoint Paradox. The tone of it, right? The
Yeah.
tone of it is very very dark. It's like ridiculously dark because it's basically a parallel universe that is created by Barry Allen saving his mom, right?
Right.
And what would have happened if because Barry Allen saved his mom, right?
Right.
So the world is completely on its head. You got to watch it because you would be like, how on earth are they going to translate that? In effect, 90% of the story needs to be changed for them to make it fit tonally
Well,
in this.
I-
In
I'm
the
I'm sure I'm sure Jeff Johns is on the phone to Kevin Feige.
yes,
Do
there's no they honestly it's impossible to do it. It's impossible to do it because the tone of it is so much like it's very dark. There's an alternate Batman, there's an alternate Superman, there's an
Yeah,
alternate Wonder Woman, there's an alternate Aquaman. Very
yeah,
brutal, and all the fight scenes are brutal in it, like super brutal, man. I mean, and there's no way they can translate it. You're talking about Legion of Doom, Legion of Doom with Deathstroke in it. Deathstroke carries around two katana blades and a gun, right? So how are you
yeah.
going to put that in this universe,
Yeah,
right?
and so it's and they announced, well, they're not. I'm not sure if they announced it, but they're having talks with Gareth Evans for
Yes.
an R-rated Deathstroke film. So now you're
How
going
does
to,
that fit in this universe?
yeah. So I maybe I can understand if they want to do different kind of, they would want to give variety to this universe and do dark stuff, violent
Mm.
stuff, and but then do family friendly. But it's I mean, this is what I've wanted, but I don't know if Justice League, if they want to sell Justice League as this kind of tone,
Yes.
how are they going to incorporate Deathstroke in the future and, and Flashpoint, things like that?
Yeah, I don't. I honestly, I cannot see how they would then incorporate those into this kind of universe. I mean, it's in a way, I kind of look at it, and I look back at a lot of the things that people have been saying and trying, saying things that are a little bit, have two meanings and things like that. So when they were talking about we're going to start making films that are separate, the DCU is going to be separate, right? I think pretty much, and then I look at things like, how long Matt Reeves took to do his, to do his negotiation and stuff like that. Matt Reeves has a plan for Batman. He has a plan. He's made Planet of the Apes. He wants to do a very kind of a darkish tone with, David Fincher kind of tone he was talking about, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like he's got that idea in his mind to do something like the game kind of Michael Douglas kind of film,
Yeah.
and he has to have it separate, and potentially he has to have another actor now because that Batman has been cemented as this. Right, so that Batman cannot go into a David Fincher kind of thing, and then it's come back to this kind of thing. It has to be a different. It really has to be almost a
Well,
different actor.
well, I mean, if you think about it, he must have signed on knowing that, okay, we've got Ben Affleck. He must have seen something in Batman v Superman to make him go,
Yes,
okay, I can work with this kind of Batman.
yes,
But now you've got Justice League. He must be thinking, what the fuck is going on in this
yes,
universe?
yes. He must be
So,
thinking to himself, like, okay, well, that's fine. I will still carry on with my stuff, but I'm going to need somebody else because I can't do it. It's like
and
I could have
I'm
worked with a guy in BVS,
yeah,
right? But I can't work with the guy in Justice League. It makes no sense whatsoever. So
yeah.
yeah, and all the stuff, obviously, like the Joker separate and the Deathstroke separate, and this and this and this. It kind of seems to me that they're going to end up. It'll be interesting to see what Aquaman's like, actually, because to me it seems like the main theme that they want to go forwards with Superman and Justice League and potentially Flash is going to be this kind of style, this kind of jokey, very light-hearted, very not many stakes kind of thing, very much like the Marvel kind of template. In which case, I'm out of those three films. I'm not going to want to go and watch a Superman film if it's like that, right? Or a Flashpoint film, or a Justice League film.
Yeah.
However, if they continue with the other routes, the way that Wonder Woman is, Aquaman, like I said, had to wait and see what if James Wan is allowed to do his vision, or they over the next year just cut it to shreds, if, depending on what Jeff Johns is doing. And Matt Reeves, if he's allowed to, move ahead with his Batman kind of thing, then that is fine there as well. The one that I'm most concerned about is Joss Whedon and Batgirl. Right, because that character is going to be I mean, okay, I don't know whether you want to talk about this a little bit about kind of the Joss Whedon additions, especially like the Flash scene has been talked about quite a lot. Just silly stuff that is like to me is very childish and very much like what 13-year-old boys kind of talk about and would
Yeah.
find, brilliant. It seems to be added to this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll come to the Flash and Joss Whedon stuff, but just going back to Aquaman and James Wan, I would imagine Aquaman would be like Indiana Jones or Pirates of the Caribbean, something kind of action adventure. But then again, they've been talking about it as like Star Wars underwater.
Yes.
So it's going to be really interesting, but I just hope Warner Brothers doesn't again panic and
Yes.
go, no, it has to be 2 hours. It has to have lightness and jokes. And I'm sure James Wan was kind of signing on, knowing that he's going to have a bit more control.
Yes.
I don't think he would want them messing around with anything he's got, because he's proved himself like with his horror films, and he can make money at the box office. Movies make money at the box office, so he should be okay. When it comes to the Flash, yeah, that scene with him going face first into Wonder Woman's boobs. Um,
Yes.
Again, is Joss Whedon doing the same thing that he did with
Black
Banner
Widow.
and Black
Yeah.
Widow. It's just juvenile garbage. It's like it doesn't need to be there. And I was watching Grace Randolph's video,
Yes.
and she says her source is telling her that Gal Gadot didn't know the scene was going to happen. They used a body double.
Oh wow. Okay.
So whoever that woman was on the floor, that was Joss Whedon directing that.
Adding that. Okay.
And then Gal Gadot's scene of her reacting and then standing up, whatever would have been, that was somewhere else. That's what Grace Randolph says.
Oh wow. Okay. I mean that puts it even in, then it kind of just makes me think that he knew it wasn't right. He knew it wasn't right because she would just been like, what the hell is this?
And,
What it's just I don't know. I mean basically it just it makes me think of what could have been in this film. The same way that when I watched Suicide Squad, what could have been if they just allowed the people to do what they were doing, right?
if you think about it, Warner Brothers have actually really fucked up the universe even much earlier, because Man of Steel did. I can't remember like post-release how they behaved, but when it comes to Batman v Superman, the first mistake was not releasing the full cut, the ultimate cut
Yes,
in the
yes.
cinemas, because that half an hour missing, that people were complaining about the editing, the story, the plot. So that's their mistake. Again, Snyder got the blame for that.
Yes, well,
Uh,
there's actually a bit of information that came out today about that. I'll after you finished, I'll tell you about that.
uh, okay, and then you had Suicide Squad, which was again taken away from DVD or cut up by a bloody trailer house
Yes,
team, whatever. And now you've got. I mean, fair enough. With Justice League, it's you had the Zack Snyder's family tragedy, but again,
principal
I think
photography is done, and just
yeah,
carry on with it.
yeah. And instead of you know going, but then even then, going back a bit more, you had before Batman v Superman's release, you had this idea of Justice League Part One and Justice League Part Two.
Yes, which would
Now,
have been awesome.
epic,
Yes,
and so that would have been a completely different story, and they reacted to Batman v Superman's release and the critics, and they pander to people like Devin Faraci and
yes.
Stephen Weintraub of Collider, and like, are you serious? You're going to pander to these people over the fans? And I'm kind of disgusted with Warner Brothers.
Yes.
They're so good at their other franchises, their films, but when it comes to superhero films, comic book films, they just kind of panic and shit themselves. And I don't know. I'm
And
kind of
that's the thing that I don't understand because they're in charge of the animated stuff as well, and almost all the animated stuff is good. Some
yeah,
of it is varying better than others, and all they need to do is use the same kind of template and just elongate it. So
Yeah.
I don't understand why they kind of do that. But yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you said, that they kind of reacted to what these people were saying. So I've seen countless reviews of BVS and MOS saying, "Oh, it's so long." So what did they do? Mandatory. Let's make it 2 hours, right? Oh, Superman's not smiling enough. Let's have him smiling even when he's beating, Steppenwolf to a pulp. Oh, he
Yeah.
doesn't save enough civilians. Okay, well, we need to make it that he's blatantly saving civilians in this
A,
in
a
this
whole
kind of thing.
flat, a whole flat building of
Yes.
civilians. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And basically just make it that it is overly obvious that we're like pandering to people. And I think it started off this kind of silliness started off actually after Man of Steel, because in Batman v Superman, apparently from what I've read there today, Jeff Johns is the one who stipulated that it should be Batman v Superman, and that Zack Snyder said didn't want it as Batman v Superman. That's the
What did
thing
he
that I
want?
read there today. So he wanted it as something else. He wanted to call it something else, but they stipulated it to be Batman v Superman. And part of that is the thing. I mean, if you look at the criticisms, right? Half the criticisms, oh, I thought there was going to be a massive fight between Batman v Superman. Where was all the stuff with Batman and Superman fighting? Because immediately, right, for people, as soon as you write V in it, they think, right, the whole thing's going to be fights throughout the entire thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it triggers in your brain the fact of what it is. It's like, Foreman versus Ali. It just
Yeah.
triggers that in your brain. So just the idea of the title makes it very kind of, very problematic just to
Yeah.
start off with. And then when I look at Zack Snyder's film, I mean, if I look at it completely objectively, right, and I look at it from, just the general kind of public view, there are three things that, for the general public, could be changed very slightly to make it so that the films will be palatable to everyone. And that is making the narrative slightly simpler for them to understand, making some of the dialogue slightly easier for them to understand, and making it slightly shorter, right? But to go to extremes on this level, so in effect, like Justice League didn't really have any story and didn't explain any story because, oh, we're treating the public like they're stupid now, and they don't, they're saying they don't want a story, or some people on YouTube are saying the public don't want a story, so we're basically getting rid of all of it. Oh, they said that, there's not enough jokes in Zack Snyder's thing, so let's just make jokes absolutely everywhere. And
Yeah.
then it's like it's not light enough, so now let's lighten the tone. And like, you know the way that they did it, one, Zack Snyder is very clever. I mean, he's seen the way that he filmed something on an iPhone. He knows that basically when you look at something that is CGI, sometimes it doesn't look quite real. So he's
Yeah.
very clever at changing the color palette and the tone to make it so that everything flows into each other and it looks
Yeah.
like you're looking at something real, even though
Yeah.
you're looking at green screen.
James Cameron is the same. You look at Terminator 2. It's like
Yes.
it's very lots of blue tints and all just kind of it's very seamless. You don't see that. And that was like what? How many years ago?
Exactly.
And it still looks amazing. So clearly these directors, they know what they're doing. It's just let them do.
Yeah.
Like let Snyder do what he wants.
And the other thing, I mean, if they just, I mean, Chris Terrio wrote the script, who's a very good script writer, right? So it's like, okay, you're saying that Zack Snyder can't really, he doesn't really have good enough scripts. Well, that's fine if that's your kind of viewpoint. Then let Chris Terrio have free reign on it. Just let him have free reign, let him write the entire thing, instead of being like, okay, well, then also that means that the guy who's helping him can't do it and I know better. I mean, I think what it is that the problem with Jeff Johns is that he's very good at comic books, right? But he doesn't know anything about films. He knows nothing about it, right? I mean, he thought Green Lantern was like the top end of his of film, filmmaking. So it's kind of like you've got the guy who thinks that is amazing and has worked on that, and then he's the one who's dictating that, no, this doesn't look right, doesn't look right, whatever. I mean, Jeff Johns was tweeting, 6 months ago, when there was some website had put up a list saying the top 10 best Superman scenes ever in film, right? And he's like, get ready to revise your list. Well, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, mate. I can't see anywhere where there's like gonna be like the number one Superman scene is gonna be, in this film, because
You
there isn't.
you'll probably put the freezing breath, the frost. What was
Yes.
it? Yeah.
He probably thought, oh yeah, it's got freezing breath now. I mean,
Nostalgia.
yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, well, the whole point is he has to have an arc to learn how to do that. You know what I mean? It's like, suddenly he knows how to do this one thing. I like it when people kind of discover stuff, and they discover. This is why I love Cyborg so much, because he was discovering things by accident, and then he's like, right, I'm gonna now use this, like, to go and fight. So he was like, his arm was like mutating into a cannon. He didn't really know what
Yeah.
was going on, and then later on he realized that it's a defense mode. So if anything goes and tries to attack him, he then produces this cannon, right? So then he
Yeah.
started using it. It's the same thing with Superman. He had, in the last two films, he's never used freeze breath, and now suddenly, oh, I've got freeze breath talent. I could use it. It's like, at some point, if he has to figure out how to use it. Like in Man of Steel, when he couldn't fly, and
Yeah.
he kind of was like, oh, I'm going to use it. I'm going to use my skills or whatever. He had his mentor, which is, the hologram of his father, who is teaching
Yeah.
him stuff. These kind of things were like so missing, and it makes me kind of, it just annoys me a bit that all the
I,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I actually missed that when I was because I've watched Man of Steel in the cinema once.
Yes.
Then I think this time I was watching it the other day, must have been the third time or the fourth
Uh-huh.
time, probably
Uh-huh.
the fourth time, and I just kind of that first time. It's like
I'm losing you a bit there, man. Hello.
it's in Jove.
Shaker, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I've just lost you for like the past 5 seconds there.
All right.
Do you want to
So
repeat what you were saying?
no, I was just saying, so um, that scene. So watching it for the fourth time, Man of Steel, just seeing him excited, he's having fun, flying for the first time, and then people just ignored that like it didn't happen,
Yes.
and suddenly people are saying with Justice League, oh, this is the Superman I've been waiting for. Well, he almost kills the Justice League in this film, right?
Yes.
He stands in a field for about 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and then he comes back just out of nowhere wearing a colourful costume and beats up the bad guy, and apparently that's good enough.
Yes, and because he
I
uses
don't
freeze
get it.
breath pretty much,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
smiles a lot, and
I,
and
I mean, I can. When it comes to just randomly, I think I've kind of forgot to mention Steppenwolf. How, like, if someone told me, Steppenwolf is kind of crappy villain, and he's just there, to make the Justice League come together. If someone told me that, I'd be okay, fair enough.
quiet. 1 second.
So,
Sorry, my
so,
daughter's here. Give me a second. Yeah, sorry, man. You were saying?
so I was just saying, if someone told me Steppenwolf as a villain is just he's just there to set up the Justice League and bring them together, he's a crappy villain, I would have been like, okay, that's fine. But to see Steppenwolf and he has this kind of expressionless face,
Yes.
and he's all CGI, it was so disappointing. At least give him something.
Yes.
His dialogue was bad as well. Like, you're going to love me. You're all going to love me. It's like, what are you talking about?
And I think
Don't-
that's the thing. I think that would have made more sense. When he was saying stuff like that, that was kind of ringing in my ears. What Kieran Hines's interviews, what he was saying there before, because he was saying he's reluctantly, he's being sent by Darkseid to conquer all these worlds. He doesn't want to do it anymore, right? And it's like he basically wants a way out, right? And it's this stuff about, oh, you're gonna love me or whatever, is basically like what he really wants is to get out of Darkseid's shadow and get to a place where he can rule for himself, and he wants that to
Right.
be Earth, right? But there was nothing there. There's nothing to tell us any of that,
Yeah.
and there was no hint of that. And it's like, okay, this is the thing. People always saying, right? Oh, Batman v Superman and Man of Steel are terrible because the narrative's really bad and you can't understand what's going on. And if you're not a comic book fan, well, you're not going to understand a single thing that's in it. So when this guy comes out and says for Darkseid, right? What's
Yeah.
that meant to mean? Honestly, to somebody like my sister who lives in the States, who just went to see it, right? She texted me and was like, "What does that Darkseid thing mean?" And I was like, "Oh, and then I fanboyed on it, just told her too much. She's like, too much
Yeah.
information. But basically, it's like, okay, you can't put in things like that, right? And then say, oh, by the way, Zack Snyder doesn't do enough narrative to make people understand who don't know the comic books, right?
Yeah.
There are, all the stuff in here that I could kind of see that I didn't like was all the stuff that seemed to be the secondary photography, because it's like they seem to try to be fixing problems that never really were there, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I understand, like, people have been posting photos and things there before, and if you watch the first trailer and then the second trailer, the first trailer is very dark. Aquaman is doing this thing with his Quinden, and he's like pinning this aqua demon on the side of
Yeah.
a rock, and then now it's all red. Everything's all red, and they've changed all of that, and the CGI. I couldn't understand why they did that. Who tested that and said, do you know
Yeah.
what? I don't like the way that Aquaman's going against this parademon. That's really bad. They
Yeah.
shouldn't really be
I
doing that.
loved. Yeah, I loved the earlier footage. It was very kind of midnight looking. It was
Yes,
dark, and it looked kind of sinister. And then you've got this for this version. You've got all this red everywhere. You've got this blue force field. I
yes,
didn't understand what the purpose that was. I
and
didn't
a
get
force
that.
field that can be taken down by one shot from Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Uh,
You know, not even he didn't even create. He hasn't even created a special weapon or anything like that. But he's just like a standard weapon that he's had. He doesn't know what the alien technology or anything is, and he flies into this force field. Right, he basically flies through it. Right. I mean,
and
it's like,
for a second, I thought he smashed into it and he was like
yeah.
gonna kind of fly away again, but he just carried on. I was like, what?
Yeah, it's kind of like, in Independence Day, right? And
Yeah.
they've got these
Yeah.
force fields, and the planes, they fly into it and they all get destroyed. I was thinking, how does Batman know he can fly through this thing
Exactly. Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
and just not just end up in a massive fireball? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just so much silliness in it. I mean, have you got any like friends or family or whatever who've seen this, who really are not into comic book movies or into the DC world or whatever, who have had a positive or a negative experience from this?
My brother, I think maybe one of my brothers might get to see it, but he's just kind of he's not really into movies that much. Let's see. So I guess some of my Facebook friends, my old college friends, maybe a couple of them might get to see it on the weekend, and I'll see what they think. But not many, no.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is mainly my sister, who absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
She absolutely
Oh,
loved it. She said that she didn't like the Superman stuff. She thought that he was just silly, and she thought Flash was quite annoying.
oh,
Um,
we've not talking about the Flash. I thought he was okay in parts. Like
yes,
his intro was hilarious, where he draws on the guy's face. I thought
yes,
that was
that was
funny.
brilliant. Yeah,
Very, really clever way of doing that. I mean, poor Billy Crudup. He's
yes,
like locked up in this movie, and he's like usually one of Zack Snyder's main men, So it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
sad to see him locked up. But the Flash himself, some of the scenes were just cringy. Some of the jokes just didn't
mm,
care. Like he brought up kind of something about racial.
Yes.
something racial when he's trying to fist bump Cyborg. I was like,
Yes.
what?
That was just silly. That was just
Um,
silly.
and
It
then
just
he goes into the bat cave and he's like, it's a cave, a bat cave, and he has this stupid look on his face. He's going all over the place. I was like, this is just so forced and so
yes.
stupid.
And somebody who's like super into technology, right? As he is, and he loves technology, and he always wants to be in it or whatever. That is not the type of guy who's like, oh, let me go and sit in the Batmobile and let me do this. He's going to be looking into the workings of these things, right? If you go to his, you know, when Bruce Wayne went to his apartment or whatever it was, his lockup or whatever, you know, he's got like so many screens there. He's got 3D printers. He's got, you know, his flash suit, all of this kind of stuff. This guy should be looking at the tech. He shouldn't be just like, you know, like a 5-year-old kid, like, oh, I'm sitting in the Batmobile. Oh, look, what's this? Oh, look, what's that? You know, that's just, to me, is behaving like a 5-year-old rather than behaving like somebody who's into tech. And
Yeah.
people don't like him because he's just so geeky and is always looking into tech and is a bit socially awkward.
Yeah, and it's like someone said, you know, he's being Ezra Miller. He's not being Barry Allen. He's being very
Yes.
eccentric and weird and
Yeah.
twitchy and all that.
Yeah. I mean, the main thing with this is that I just, um, it kind of just makes me think that, you know, they once you panic like this, then you
Yeah,
end up in a situation where you embarrass yourself if the result that you were trying to get doesn't occur, right? So they panicked because Zack Snyder's original cut, when you know when the executives watched it, it didn't test well with them. I mean, I don't know who these guys are, but obviously it didn't test well with them. So they're like, you know what? Basically, unfortunately, the tragedy happened with his daughter, and they're probably like, you know what? You wanted to take some time off, take some time off, and we'll sort this stuff out, right?
yeah, yeah,
And basically, like they didn't sort it out. They chopped it. They did whatever, as we know, right? Their main aim was firstly to get very high critical response, and secondly to get a response from the box office that was very high as well. And from what I've seen on the box office stuff, and as we know from the critic response, it's been the complete opposite.
yeah,
So you embarrass yourself when there are people who have got, you know, in the great scheme of things, 500,000 followers on YouTube is nothing compared to the population of the world that watches movies, right? And
yeah,
you're making your response based on somebody who's got 500,000 or 1 million followers on YouTube and is saying stuff about your movie. You're making your movie based on that person or those group of people or whatever. And you
yeah,
can tell because it's the exact things that these people have been saying. Exactly the same things. You know, when I was watching it, I was cringing because I was thinking they've done this because some no-name person has told them to do it and they've actually done it, and it's embarrassing because they should know better. The same studio that creates a film that is visually a masterpiece and a masterpiece of storytelling like Blade Runner 2049
yeah,
within a few months releases this. You just
yeah.
think, what is going on with you people?
Because you've got Brazil is I very doubt, you know, people in Brazil give two shits about, you know,
Yes.
Collider.com or
Yeah.
uh, you know, Devin Faraci or whoever these critics are
Yes.
on Rotten Tomatoes. I doubt very much Brazilians care, or South Koreans,
Yeah.
Japanese. This movie is going to make quite a bit of money abroad.
Yes.
There's fans all over the world. I mean, I understand they went over to London as well, um, and
And
I think
China and yeah.
China, and I think it was James Cameron who said, like, when we opened Titanic, we went abroad to get away from the American critics, like,
Yes.
you know, because they're so kind of vile and kind of make personal attacks against you, whereas you can go abroad and the critics, the journalists, they care about the movie, they want to know about the movie.
Yes.
And I think I thought that that's what they were doing with this kind of Chinese trip
Yes.
and the London, but like it's just like you've said in this podcast, it's like they've been pandering to all the wrong people.
Yeah, and and that's the thing. That is, it's good that you bring that up because I was I was very excited for this film, right? And then I kind of thought, do you know what? Let me go and watch some non-spoiler review. I couldn't stop myself. I kind of was like, I'm just gonna have to watch some of these non-spoiler reviews. So I watched the comicbook.com one, and I watched the Schmoes Know one, and I can't remember who else that I watched, right? And all of these guys were like gushing over this film. Like, this is amazing. The Flash was amazing. Cyborg was great. I love the way this was. Oh, I love the way that was. And that worried me straight away because I thought these guys like films that are like really simple, have no real plot to them. They just kind of just like they're kind of
Forgettable.
very forgettable, don't last a long time. Just like the jokes come and it's like the jokes make you forget the crapness that is actually going on in front of you on the screen. And that worried me, and everything that I kind of was worried about unfortunately came to fruition when actually watching the film. So where do you think to close the podcast, where do you think that DC is going to go from here, given what is going on critically and given what it looks to be like in the box office from what we're seeing in the opening numbers and things like that, post Justice League?
Well, let's see. I think Warner Brothers, they're not done when it comes to kind of reactionary behavior. I think they've still got another reaction to go. I think they're going to panic again. I don't know what direction they're going to go in, but I think they're going to panic again.
Yes.
Based on, because the Jeff Johns, or you were talking about hope and heroics and optimism and lightness and hope and hope and hope, and what you got 10% more on Rotten Tomatoes compared to Batman v Superman. Very good. So I don't know, maybe if people are talking, I've not tweeted at Jeff Johns, I've not tweeted at anyone else, but everyone's tweeting at Jeff Johns and telling him, you fucked up. So I think I have no idea where going. I have to wait a whole year to see what Aquaman's going to be like. So
are you looking forward to any of the stuff that we kind of, obviously we don't know because they chop and change all the time, right? So but let's kind of look at what they're saying. So Nightwing, Shazam, Deathstroke, the Joker movie, Batman universe, and Wonder Woman 2 and Aquaman. What ones of those are you looking forward to?
Well, you've got to think that the Joker and the Deathstroke film, Deathstroke's in the same universe, so this Joker origin film, they'll probably just skip that. I think they're just going to shelve that soon at some point. Wonder Woman 2 would be interesting. Aquaman, Shazam. But even now, I'm worried about Shazam. Is that going to be just like juvenile jokes? Is it going to be kind of pandering to, again, the wrong kind of people? The people like Schmoes Know, are they going to pander to the Chris Duckmans of this world? But who knows? I'm kind of worried about Aquaman now.
Yes.
Just a little bit.
What about do you think Matt Reeves is going to be allowed to make his trilogy in the way that we think he would probably want to make it?
Again, that's what I'm thinking. I think that Warner Brothers have got another spaz that they're going to throw at some stage, and that's up in the air now as well for myself. So I'm just thinking about, are they going to announce the next Man of Steel Superman movie? When are they going to announce it? Who's the director going to be? We need some news on that.
Yeah.
That's it's just weird, it's like Rotten Tomatoes is, I see a lot of critics and journalists now kind of questioning Rotten Tomatoes, and You've got all these fans around the world, all these countries, journalists, critics, all around the world, and Rotten Tomatoes kind of takes the word of 200 to 300 critics,
Yes.
and mostly in the UK and the US.
Yes.
It's like
Exactly.
it just boggles my mind. But I mean, what do you think about the future of the DCEU?
Um, okay. Well, for me, the only two that I'm looking forward to are Batman and Deathstroke. Um, just because I think I've seen what Matt Reeves has done there before. I've seen that he's done Planet of the Apes, and I'm just like, if this guy's let to do his own thing, then he will make something that is memorable. Also with Gareth Evans with the Raid, he only knows how to make films like that, so he's not. It's gonna have be amazingly brutal. But I'm also like you quite worried because Deathstroke is now in has come in this Justice League film. So it's like the problem is that the whole point in these, as we know, are adverts for other films. That's why Marvel does it all the time. It's like buy our toys and this, by the way, this film is coming out, so you want to go and see that, right? It's the
Yeah,
same silly template, which is why Chris Nolan says a good film doesn't need post-credit scenes, right?
yeah, yeah,
The Now you've got Deathstroke in this universe. If a 12-year-old boy who has seen this film sees a Deathstroke film is coming out, and 12-year-old kids don't go on Rotten Tomatoes, they don't give a stuff. They basically are just like, they're like, oh my god, that Deathstroke guy at the end, yeah, they're making a film about him. Oh, I wish they're going to tell me. When they test that and they find out, oh, by the way, this is an 18 kid, you can't come to this, right? The Warner Brothers, like you're saying, are going to throw another spaz and be like, do you know what? We got to get these kids in who loved Justice League and get them to watch Deathstroke. And it's like, how much can they watch? Because everybody's expecting that when that film comes out, that they're going to have fight scenes like they have between Batman and Deathstroke in the Arkham games. That's what everyone's hoping, kind of thing, right?
yeah, yeah,
But how much of that can they do when they've already put that in that universe? I'm extremely worried for Aquaman, big time, because Aquaman is now in this universe and he's been cemented in this universe. So whatever James Wan wants to do, right, it has to be, this is now the template. The Justice League as a template has come there before. Wonder Woman, I'm not so worried about before, because Wonder Woman 2 just had to follow Wonder Woman, right?
yeah,
The main thing with these films that I just kind of think is like, the problem is there's too much stakes in them. Okay, there's no need to make this film 250-300 million dollars, right? This film could be much, like especially with Suicide Squad could be made for under 100 million. It can be much smaller. It can
yeah,
be a heist kind of movie, and it will be absolutely awesome if they did it like
yeah,
that. They could do something like that, right? They could make these films much, much smaller. Justice League has to be bigger, but they don't
yeah,
need to make it so huge that it costs so much money, that there's so much stakes in it, that that it ends up in a situation where you have to pander to everybody in order to make
yeah,
sure that you've got the film in the correct way. So, I mean, the only ones that I'm really looking forward to are really the Batman films and the Deathstroke one, if they're allowed to do their thing. But the only way I can see the Batman ones being able to do their thing is if they recast. And the which I'll talk about actually a little bit in a second before we go, and the Deathstroke one, if he's allowed to do what he wants to do. But we talk about recasting. I'll tell you what, Ben Affleck, he's a very good director, right? Do
yeah.
you reckon he watched this and was like, Jesus, what have you done? Right? What have
Must
you
have,
done? I don't want to be part of this anymore.
yeah. I mean, because I've heard, I think again it was Grace Randolph or someone who says the cast were not happy that Joss Whedon was coming in.
Yes.
I've heard about that, and I can imagine what Ben Affleck, like because I keep going back to, like, when Man of Steel started, you had Chris Nolan, You've plenty of pictures of him, working with Snyder on
Yes.
set. You've got him, Snyder, Nolan, Zimmer, Goyer, who everyone seems to shit on, but I think he's all right.
Yeah.
And it's like they had this idea, the right tone, the right ideas, and they should have just doubled down and just continue making them. But
Yeah.
what can you? They get rid of Junkie XL. They bring in Danny Elfman, whose score does nothing for this film.
Yes.
They bring in Joss Whedon, who's like, oh well, he's done. He handled the Avengers, so he must be good. But it's like if they stick to what they're saying, that these future movies are not going to be, so kind of restrained by the universe kind of idea of building a universe. I mean, they'll still be part of the universe, but they'll be allowed to be a bit more creative. Maybe that if they actually stick to that, then I won't have any problems with Aquaman, because then Aquaman will have its own flavor and its own kind of identity. Then Shazam as well. So they have said, these future movies won't be tied too much to the universe or restrained by the universe. So hopefully they stick to that.
Yeah, let's hope, man. Let's hope. Well, Shaker, it's been awesome to have you on, man. It
No problem.
always is, man. I would, in a year's time, let's see if we can get you on for Aquaman, and hope we're not repeating the same conversation, guys.
I would love to be on there.
Yeah, awesome, guys. If you wanna contact us, you can contact us on Twitter on View from the Cave, and also viewfromthecave@yahoo.com, and our Facebook page, which is the DC versus Marvel podcast. You can also speak to Shaker. He's very active on Twitter. It's at FilmGob, right?
That's right, yeah.
And also on YouTube. Let us know what you thought about Justice League, and what you think about the DC films going forward there in the future. And we will speak to you again in about a week's time, and Ash will be here, and I have to be prepared for him lambasting this film. Right.
I mean, I'm kind of disappointed he wasn't able to make it today, but
I'll
definitely tune in
it
next
6
time.
out of 10. He rated it 6 out of 10. He thought it was better than me. That's the funny thing about it. So yeah, we'll have a chat next week. And guys, thanks Shake for coming, man, and we'll talk to you again next time.